Assalamu alaikum. The topic of our today's class is the Battle of Hunain. Earlier we talked about the conquest of Makkah and also the related events which were related to the conquest of Makkah. That is the 8th year of Hijrah, and in the 8th year of Hijrah, several major incidents that took place at the time. And here we can mention that it was at that time when the Battle of Hunain was also fought. Here we can mention that the Battle of Hunain, it was fought due to the reason that Muslims, they had conquered Makkah. Muslims, they had three basic major enemies: Jews, Quraysh of Makkah, and also the Hawazin and Thaqif tribe of Taif. So Islam flourished in Makkah and Muslims became stronger, and uh, they gained strength. So the tribes living near Makkah, they were very much worried about the growth and the strength of the Muslim army. So they made an agreement with the other tribes of Taif, Saqif, and Hawazin. These were the two major tribes. They joined their forces. Okay, and Saqif were known for their courage, and they decided to wipe out Muslims and to stop their further advancement towards the other parts of the Arabia. And they gathered a large force and they marched towards Makkah. And Holy Prophet, peace upon him, was receiving the news, and he was aware about their plans about and he was aware about their intentions. So the leader Malik bin Awf, the chief of these tribes, the chief of one of these tribes, Malik bin Awf, he has been selected as the leader, and he decided to march with all their belongings, their women, their children, their families, and he suggested that they should uh, move forward with their animals, belongings, everything. Okay, and everyone agreed to the opinion and suggestion of Malik bin Auf, except for one of the very famous personality, Duraid bin Simma. Duraid. Duraid rejected the idea of bringing everything in the battlefield, but Malik bin Auf insisted, and he went along with everything and all women and children. Fine, and they marched towards Makkah and they encamped at Hunain. They all encamped at Hunain. When Holy Prophet, peace upon him, got to know about the arrival of the enemy, Holy Prophet, peace upon him, also prepared an army, and he prepared a force of 12,000 men, and 10,000 for those who had come along with him for the conquest of Makkah, and 2,000 were the new converts who had accepted Islam after the conquest of Makkah. So altogether, he had a force of 12,000 men, and this time, for the first time, Muslims were very well equipped, and they had also enough number of strength as compared to the Battle of Badr. So their great number, it elated them, and they considered and they thought that no one would be able to get victory over them. So Holy Prophet, peace upon him, marched to meet the enemy with 12,000 men. Enemy was already waiting for the Muslim army, and I told you that Muslims, they were proud of their strength, their number, and this verse is also related to this specific event that Allah gave you victory on many fields, and on the day of Hunain, and also on the day of Hunain, particularly the name is mentioned in the Quranic verse, Surah number 9, verse number 25. And on the day of Hunain, when you're when you got elated and you felt proud in your great number, okay, it was of no help to you, it was of no use, it availed them not. And the earth, although it was very much vast, it was very much wide, it got straightened for them, and Muslims, they started running away from the battlefield. Okay, here we also have to give the details that when Prophet, peace upon him, went to fight with Hawazin and Saqif in the Battle of Hunain, since the great number elated them, and at that time, Hawazin and Thaqif, these men, they had hid their archers in the mountains, and when the Muslim army they were passing and they were crossing the valley, they received a surprise attack from the enemies. So, as soon as all the Muslims were trapped in the narrow passage, it was a very narrow passageway, and Hawazin ambushed them, attacked on them, and they threw rocks and they showered arrows on the Muslims, and Muslim army got trapped uh, in it. At that time, here you can mention that the Prophet peace upon him called his army in a surprise and affair. They started to retreat, and Holy Prophet peace upon him was very much bitterly disappointed to see that his army running away from the battlefield. But Prophet peace upon him remained firm in his place with Abu Bakr, with Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and his uncle Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Okay, Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu, his uncle, he called the Muslims to return and not to abandon the Holy Prophet peace be upon him. So he called them and he reminded them about their pledges which they had made with the Prophet peace upon him at the time of the pledges of Aqaba and at the time of the Baitar Rizwan. So these pledges were reminded, and Holy Prophet peace upon him remained firm, and they started returning back. They rejoined the Holy Prophet Muhammad peace be upon him, and they launched an attack on all the three sides, on right and left, where the archers were there, and also at the front, and they pushed the enemy back. Allah also sent down his angels, the host which they were unable to see, for the aid and for the help of the Muslims. And the battle started, and the Muslim warriors, they advanced, they attacked furiously, and they drove the Hawazin back to their places. So just as it was predicted by the old man Duraid, uh, the enemy uh, started retreating, leaving behind their families, their possessions to be captured. Okay, so they left behind huge spoils of war for the Muslims, and they ran towards for their own safety. Okay, mention you need to mention these things in your answer whenever you talk about the Battle of Hunain. Fine. So you can mention that you can talk about the spoils that Muslims they had received, the number of camels, the number of goats and sheep which they had received. Many people were made captive. 6,000 prisoners of war, 24,000 camel, and 40,000 sheep and goats were received by the Muslims. So this is such a huge spoils of war which the Muslims had received. Holy Prophet peace upon him pursued the retreating forces, since they retreated and they shut themselves in Taif in their strong forts. Holy Prophet peace upon him collected the spoils of war, and he shifted the spoils to Jirana, and he himself marched along with his companions, along with his army, to Taif, and he laid siege to Taif. Fine. And here in Taif, they closed themselves and they collected a huge stock of provisions and food for them for a year. Holy Prophet peace upon him, he began his siege of the city, and he made different attempts to make the people of Taif come out of their fort and to fight with the Muslims in open. Muslims, they made different attempts to bring them out for the open fighting, and I told you that they made different attempts. Okay, they went near the wall and they called them Muslims. They challenged them. Okay, but they also used catapults to weaken the wall of their fort. But they had collected such a huge stocks of food for them that the Prophet peace upon him realized that they were even ready for such a long siege. Finally, the Holy Prophet peace upon him ordered that the date palms and the vineyards to be cut down. Okay, so At last, the people of Taif, they begged the Prophet, peace upon him, in the name of God, to spare their orchards. Okay, to which the Prophet, peace upon him, immediately stopped his companions for doing so. And we can say that the siege lasted for few weeks. We can say that it lasted for 20 days, some sources mention. And finally, the Holy Prophet, peace upon him, lifted the siege, and he left the people of Taif expecting and hoping that they would come. And he prayed for their guidance that, "O Allah, guide the people of Taif. Okay, guide the people of Taif and rescue them from disbelief." Fine. So he lifted the siege and he returned back. He returned back to Jirana, where he had collected the spoils of war. And here at Jirana, Holy Prophet, peace upon him, distributed the spoils of war amongst his army. And 1/5 of the booty was taken for himself and for the welfare, as that has been described in the Holy Quran. And rest of the 4 part the was distributed amongst the uh, army. Here you can also mention that he preferred and he gave share particularly to those people who had recently embraced Islam, and he gave them more share. And you can briefly mention that how the immigrants and the people from Quraysh, they received more share as compared to Ansars. Okay, so you can mention that this is how the spoils were distributed amongst them. So the Ansars from Medina, who were supporting the Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, for a long time, and they had seen such difficult years. Okay, they received nothing. They felt a little bit uneasy and they felt angry about this, and they went to the Prophet, peace upon him, to complain. Okay, and he said to them, Holy Prophet, peace upon him, said to them that, "What is this I hear of you? Okay, do you think badly of me?" And he reminded them about the favors which he did with Ansars at the time when they were at war. Ansars, they were fighting with one another. And he has guided them. Prophet, peace upon him, told them that, "Did I not come to you when you did not know the truth? And I guided you. You were poor and Allah made you rich. Okay, and you were the enemies and you were fighting with one another. And Allah has softened your heart. And you became Muslim and you became brother to one another." Okay, are you not satisfied that some people, they will take along with them the flocks, the herds of camel and the other animals, and you will take the messenger of Allah back with you to Medina? So upon hearing this, all men Ansars, they felt very much they started weeping, and they felt very much humble, and they said to the Prophet, peace upon him, that we indeed are well pleased to have Allah's messenger with us. Fine. This is how you can give the details about the Hunain. And whenever you talk about the Battle of Hunain, you also have to write about the Siege of Taif also. So Holy Prophet, peace upon him, distributed the spoils, and he waited for some time so that people of Taif would come and they would accept Islam, and so that their families would be returned back to them. But later on, after when he distributed the spoils, the people of Taif came, they accepted Islam. Okay, Prophet, peace upon him, urged his followers to set the captives free, and they did so. Holy Prophet, peace upon him, put on his ihram for Umrah from Jirana. Okay, he returned back to Makkah and performed Umrah and appointed governor over there, and he later on returned back to Medina. This is all about that the major events of the Prophet life, and it was about the Battle of Hunain. So this is how, whenever you have to write about the Battle of Hunain, you need to give a brief background. You can talk about the sects of the tribes of Hawazin and Thaqif. They were very much hostile towards Muslims and Islam, and they did not want to submit to Islam, so they decided to fight against the Muslims. And Prophet, peace upon him, marched with an army of 12,000 men. And you can talk about the way the Hawazin and Thaqif, they had planned, and since they were aware of, there was a possibility that they were aware about the route which was to be taken up by the Muslims, and they hit their archers, who showered arrows and who hurled stones on the Muslims, and the front of the Muslim army got disorganized. And when this happened, the enemy attack became furious, and the Muslims started to retreat. Holy Prophet, peace upon him, called his troops through his uncle Abbas back, and when they came back, okay, and they attacked, and Malik bin Awf and his forces were defeated. Since they had come with their families, belongings with them, Muslims, they captured huge spoils of war, and this battle is also mentioned in Surah Tawba, verse number 25. I told you about this verse. Okay, you should be able to quote this verse in your answer, or even some portion of it would be also be sufficient. So here, whenever you would be writing about Taif, fine. Sorry, whenever you would be writing about Hunain, you also have to write about the siege of Taif and the conquest of Taif in your answer also. So I hope it is clear, and you have to write the answer in the same way. If you have any question, you can share it with me so that I would be able to explain it further and give you notes about it.